Good evening. This is A.L. Johnson with Elevating Men. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, perfect. This is A.L. Johnson with Elevating Men, and we're back with another show. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. This is going to be a very, very special broadcast. We've got three esteemed guests with us. They're going to be talking about men's mental health, which is what we're all about, the mental health of the man. Of course, you already know my brother next to me, Andrew Boykin from Dinner and Dialogue, as well as Resting2050.org. Next to him, we have LaRon Barnes, a.k.a. LaRon the Motivator. And below us, we actually have our guest. And so I'm going to start with you, Jordan. Can you tell people who you are, what it is that you do, and what you are all about?
Perfect. Thanks for that. Thanks for having us, AL. We're really excited about the conversation tonight. As you said, my name is Jordan Lewis. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm a licensed mental health therapist for 2 years now. And I'm one of three members of the Men's Wellness Collective, who, the rest of the team you'll meet here in a little bit, and just really excited to have this conversation tonight and talk to you guys a little bit about men's mental health and some of the things that we've experienced in our work in the mental health space. So thanks for having us.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate that. Caleb, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Caleb Adegoke. I am a licensed mental health therapist in the Kansas City area. I just graduated and started my private practice here in Midtown Kansas City. And I am, I guess, the other third of the Men's Wellness Collective. I really enjoy working with individuals and with the community to, strengthen mental health awareness, get rid of some of the stigma, and just enjoy doing work around just being the best version of yourself.
Love it. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Dalen Burney.
He logged off because he was having he couldn't hear, but he's going to log back in.
Oh, okay. No problem at all. And we've got our brother in the chat, Lauren Jones. And so over the course of this conversation, as you interact with us, he'll be interacting with you. He's the vice president of Elevating Men, and so we definitely want to give him a shout out. But let's go ahead and get the conversation started. We're past all the pleasantries. I did a little bit of research, right? And so I want to start with you, Jordan. These are just a few facts that I looked up. Over 20% of men suffer from depression. Substance abuse and antisocial disorders are more prevalent among men than women. 4 times as many men die from suicide as women, which represents 79% of all suicides. Male depression has a different set of symptoms that generally go undetected by even close friends and family. And men who are in most need of mental health services are the least likely to seek them out. The last statistic here, and this is a big one, 70 to 89% of all sudden heart attacks are experienced by men with the leading cause of these heart attacks being stressed. And so, from your perspective, what is that all about? What is that all about? What are the men stressed out about? Why are they having these issues, the heart attacks, the suicide, the depression? What's going on?
Yeah. One other statistic that I'll throw in there that I recently stumbled upon that kind of relates to this is even though that percentage you threw out of 20% of men suffer from depression, that statistic is pretty consistent across all mental health diagnoses, right? But of those 20% who suffer, only 39%, actually only 37% of men actually seek mental health services. So when you talk about the discrepancy between the amount of men who are experiencing mental illness or some sort of mental diagnosis with the amount of men that actually seek help, I think that gap is where you get the high statistic in depression, because men are feeling all these things and carrying the weight of the different, stressors and emotional challenges that they experience, but they aren't going to get support. And I'm sure throughout our conversation today, we'll unpack a number of reasons why that is. But I think that's the key component there. Compared to women who over half of the time, they're seeking mental health services when they're experiencing mental diagnosis, right? And so I think to start the conversation, that's something that's really important that we're trying to address is how can we get men who are struggling with things to come to the table and be open and share about what they're going through so that they can form community and get the support that they need.
Love it, love it. Caleb, what would you say to that same question?
Yeah, I actually would wager that number is significantly higher than 20%. I think one of the biggest reasons to that being is the way men are cultured or accultured to talking, or more specifically, not talking about what's going on with them. I think that number is due to men underreporting because they feel like if they need help, it is a weakness. And men are typically taught, cultured, and brought up to be a symbol of strength, And if you need help, you're weak. Therefore, most men who do suffer don't actually engage or will underreport, which means they'll minimize their symptoms. They will ignore or they will rationalize away what's actually going on for the sake of appearing strong. And the reason that you see the suicide rates so high and stress-related heart attacks is because typically men tend to use more deadly forms of completing suicide, usually via weapons or vehicles or jumping off bridges. Those are kind of the ones that are the most typical that you see men use. And the reason that women don't have as much high success rate is because they use less lethal forms, such as pills, trying to drink themselves, or attempted suicide through injection and some of these other means. And so when you have a bunch of men who are using more lethal forms of terminating, you have a higher success rate. And then those who aren't terminating are suffering in silence. And what we know about stress is that it produces a chemical in your body called cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. The higher cortisol is, it causes things such as liver failure, heart failure, congestive heart failure is one of the big things. So we have men who are suffering in silence emotionally, and their body is producing a chemical that is causing their organs to work harder than necessary, leading to a higher rate of stress-induced heart attacks and other myriad of ailments that we can contribute to cortisol and increased stress. And so those are just some very real, unfortunate, but very real realities of how men don't deal with what's going on. And so I'll let Dalen talk about how we do sometimes deal with it in a positive way.
Yeah. I definitely agree with like both things I said, and definitely with Caleb that I think those numbers are vastly underreported. I think it's just something that men are told not to talk about or to deal with on your own. And so we're isolating ourselves, kind of white knuckling these things that we're all dealing with deep down inside, but no one's having this conversation, or very few people are having the conversation. I think that was something that we, the three of us kind of got together and realized that this is something that we deal with and we see happening in people around us. So it's let's start having these conversations. Let's start this momentum, because there are people out there who are struggling with this, or struggled with it in the past, or some sort of issue. So it's just like, let's just start being honest with each other, and that we don't have to be these stoic men dealing with it on our own. It's like, let's just have a conversation, just be real with each other for a minute. I think that's just kind of at the baseline of like what this is. It's like, let's just talk about it, because we haven't been talking about it and it's not working. And this is where it's gotten us. It's gotten those statistics and these suicide rates and all of these things. What we're doing is not working. So let's start looking at doing something different.
I love that. I love that. So going on with that, things aren't working. We had a conversation offline a few days back, and we were talking about the mental health system from a top-down, systematic perspective. Caleb, you mentioned something very, very interesting to me, and that's the failure of the system itself. And can you speak to a little bit about the insurance, how that works, and how it really doesn't effectively help people who are in need?
Yeah, I could speak to that. So the way the American healthcare system is built, at least the way healthcare and health insurance specifically is built, is on a system called basic level of functioning. So when you are ill and you are non-functional and you go to a hospital or clinic or whatever, they're not actually designing or allowing, is probably a more appropriate term, doctors, medical professionals, and mental health professionals to rehab you or heal you back to the point of like optimal functioning. They're just trying to get you to the basic level of functioning. And so when insurance gets to control who is accepted, what kind of theories are accepted, it actually limits, specifically in mental health, who you can see and how long they can see you for, and what kinds of therapeutic modalities or treatments that they can use. Like, insurance wants to pay for the least amount for the shortest amount and expecting the quickest turnaround. So, for example, I practice a form of psychoanalysis, which is based on old psychoanalysis. It's more psychodynamic. So it's very long-term, it's person-centered, it's deep, it's in depth. Insurance does not like me. They want things like CBT, which are just as effective. And I want to communicate this clearly. CBT and psychodynamic theories have been proven to be just as effective as each other, right? And different people function differently. So there are people who I recommend, hey, you do need something like CBT that is quick, that is functional, that is behavioral based. But someone who is really, really entrenched in their trauma and is in grief, CBT isn't going to work as well for them, because if you're coming to process grief of a loved one and I'm giving you worksheets, you're going to look at me like a crazy person. Now the worksheets might be effective in getting you out of your day-to-day depression, but are you processing the trauma? Are you processing the pain? Are you really getting into the things that are really what's going on? So someone like me, insurance doesn't like. Not that they don't like me, it's like they don't necessarily like my form of doing therapy, because it's long-term, it's elongated, it's drawn out. And depending on the individual, it could take 6 months, a year, 3, sometimes even 5 years. Insurance doesn't want to pay that long. So therefore, they kind of create this tunnel vision and say, okay, if you're going to be paneled with insurance, you have to function this way. You have to do this thing. We're going to pay for this amount of sessions. And it can create a really just hurtful dichotomous relationship. Whereas the people who are the therapists who are paneled with insurance are already full, right? So they can't take any more clients. And then they can't. And then the people who are looking for therapists want to use their insurance, they can't, because the therapists that aren't accepted by insurance have a waiting list, but it's more expensive. So you can see
that makes sense. That makes sense. So I heard a saying that said that therapy is a rich man's solution. You know, and so now it starts to make sense, because there's a huge income barrier. Your insurance covers a few days or maybe a couple of weeks of therapy, but you may have a 6-month to a 12-month long therapy process that you actually need to overcome that trauma. That's huge. Andrew, you have something you wanted to add?
Real quick, Caleb, will you please explain to the listeners CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, I believe it is?
Yes. So cognitive behavioral therapy is just it's a therapeutic modality which really is based on behavior modification, right? You are exhibiting a symptom you are experiencing a problem. In the therapy world, we said the client is presenting to therapy with A, B, C, D, whatever. So what CBT does is it focuses on modifying your behavior to change the result.
Perfect. The reason I asked that is I am one of those men that was very proud of my ability to think, my cognitive behavior. And if my thinking sometimes get me out of situations, I don't necessarily understand why I need to change it. So if I don't even understand that cognitive behavioral therapy is only trying to help adjust or get me from point A to point B, it's not doing what you were saying, the type of therapy you provide. It's not going back and helping me understand how I even got to point A. Is that what you were saying?
Correct. And so again, they're just as effective. And what I'll say is, like, sometimes CBT is like suturing a wound that just hasn't been healed yet. Whereas psychodynamic might be like the deep clean, and sometimes you just need the Band-Aid, right? And there are tons of different ways of doing therapy. Dalen, Jordan, and I all do therapy very different from each other. And these men are incredible at what they do. But the way insurance functions in our country today, it is basic level of functioning. What can get you back to society as a functioning member of society as quick as possible for as cheap as possible?
Got it. Really quick, I want to thank the audience. For those of you that are tuning in, we definitely appreciate your likes and your supports. Latrice Tucker, she left a good comment, and so I definitely want to address that. And I'm going to send this to you, LaRon. Just 1 second as that comes up. She said, it's disturbing and shocking how many men I know don't have anyone and or refuse to talk to others about what they are going through. LaRon, with you being a life coach, motivational speaker, you deal with people and similar issues to these therapists. And so when it comes to men refusing to talk, what do you see behind that? What's behind that?
One of the greatest things is men need to feel that they're safe. A lot of men, in order for us to let our guard down, we got to feel safe. We got to feel like we're not going to be judged. We got to trust the individual's not going to turn on us. So because a lot of us, we're not vulnerable enough. And so it's a trust factor. That's what it comes down to. When I talk to my clients, it's more about them. Hey, can I express myself to him and tell him some of the most deep things that I'm experiencing? For an example, and of course, I was working with a few clients, and a few of them talked to me about committing suicide. A few of them talked to me about, if I'm honest, like I said, I'm not getting into names. I don't do that. But what I'm saying is that situations where they were in a situation where they were about to be in prison because of some decisions they decided to make. And so being able to talk to coaches and therapists, like they do different things, but I believe truly both of them are truly needed when it comes to coaches being able to guide people out of those situations. So having those issues, having someone that they feel that they can trust, can talk to, don't have to feel judged, and just moving them in a direction. Most of the men that I talk to, they don't fully know where they're going either. So when people don't feel fulfilled, they feel that something is missing on the inside. And having someone that they can talk to, having someone that they feel that actually cares about them emotionally. A lot of us say we don't really admit that we need someone to be there emotionally, but we need people to be there emotionally. Other strong men that are there for men, because there's only a certain level of there's only a certain level that a man will be, what am I trying to say? I'll just use the word vulnerable or more sensitive. A lot of men are not as sensitive to women. Well, honestly, it's a variation. When we talk to our men and we are more vulnerable to the men, we go deeper than we would go with a woman. Is what I'm trying to say. So we need men, and we need to feel that we can talk to them in a safe way.
Love that. One thing that I wanted to ask. So, Jordan, I'll ask you this. Caleb touched on something. He said that you guys have different ways that you do therapy, right?
Mhm.
And so what does that process look? What type of questions do you ask to determine what type of therapy may be effective, and what are some of the different types? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a myriad of different types of therapeutic approaches. Caleb mentioned a couple. There are two types of therapy that I'm particularly drawn to, and something that AB said really made me think about this because he talked about cognitive behavioral therapy and that he's prided himself on being able to think right his way out of situations. I think a lot of men have done that well, right? We emphasize the thought. What we don't emphasize is the feeling, right? And so one of the therapeutic modalities that I like to use is something called internal family systems, which is basically a theory that says we have this core self, we have this kind of being, this innate version of ourselves that we can kind of think about through the lens of a child, right? A child is naturally drawn to certain things, attracted to certain things, may have innate skills and interests. And when they're young, they're just kind of going off intuition and feel. They gravitate and they're curious about certain things. And they may express interests or express hobbies or express feelings within that core self. And what happens is as we age, we start to interact with the rest of the world, we get feedback that says either, hey, your core self, your interests, your hobbies, the things you like to do, your behavior, the world in the form of our parents, classmates, societal norms gives us feedback and says, nope, that's bad. Don't do that anymore. Or yeah, that's acceptable. You can do that within limits. So as a child, what happens is you start to, because you need to survive and you need to belong, you start to go through this trial and error process of saying, okay, what parts of me can I express and can I lean into? And what parts of me are off limits based on the feedback I'm getting from the world? And so internal family systems says that as we start to deny that core self, we will develop characteristics or traits or different kind of personalities almost that were born out of our need to survive. And so internal family systems seeks to identify those different parts of us, address why they were kind of born in the first place, where's the core wound around that, and then addressing those different parts of us so that we can eventually be able to come back to core self and express more fully who we really feel that we are at our core. So
Thank
a
you.
quick example
Yeah.
I can give, just using in the spirit of vulnerability, transparency, is if I grew up, let's say, playing in sports, I would have a bad game, right? And if I had a bad game, I would feel like my coaches were disappointed in me. Maybe my parents were disappointed in me. And I would interpret that as a young child and say, oh, when I do bad, it feels like people don't like me. So how do I survive? I develop this personality or this part of me that says I have to strive to do good in everything that I do. And so perfectionism is sort of birthed from that. This part of me, my personality that says I have to be perfect. I have to go achieve. I can't fail. I can't make a mistake. Right. And then you get the stress and the anxiety from that part, which only exists because I didn't feel as if having a bad game was okay, was acceptable. So it's kind of a quick example.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that. And I definitely feel that I can see where that affects young boys possibly more than young girls because they get pushed towards sports and more competitive environments where, just dropping the ball or not making a catch or the smallest thing can turn into something huge that affects their psyche for a very long time. So when you guys intake clients, Dalen, I want to ask you this. How do you determine in advance if you feel like a client is going to be a good match? So like in that first meeting, how do you know that, okay, yeah, we're a good fit. I believe that I can help you, or what causes you to say this may not work out? Maybe I need to refer you somewhere else, or therapy just isn't it for you, or maybe you're not open enough. What does that look like?
Yeah. I think one thing that I do kind of even before the first meeting, and I know Caleb does this too. I have like a 15-minute phone consultation before we even meet, just to even get a slight feel before we meet face to face of like, what's your, what do we call it, your presenting problem, or like, why are you coming to counseling? Like, tell me a little bit about yourself. You can ask me questions. I'll kind of share a little bit about myself, because like you can kind of get a feel for someone over the phone. So there's like, it takes away some of the awkwardness. But I think once I'm in the room with someone and we start kind of beginning, the intake process and getting to know each other, a lot of it's just like that physical feel. It's like, do they feel comfortable with me? Can they share something with me? Are they being honest? Are they willing to show up and do the work? Because I think, and I work with a lot of like younger guys, probably between 20 and 25 is like a bulk of my client load right now. And just, they always say like, I don't know how to express myself. I've never done this. No one has taught me this. And so it's, as long as they're willing to show up and do the work, I will work with anybody. If they're can be honest and they just go, I don't know what to do. I need help. If they can just admit that they need help, I will show up all the time, because those are the people that are easiest to work with and the best to work with. So I just want the same amount of effort that I'm going to put into the work.
That makes sense. So we did get a question from the comment section. Lauren said, how do we create those safe spaces that LaRon spoke about? Anyone that wants to jump in there, but how are those safe spaces created?
Shameless plug real quick. So Men's Wellness Collective podcast is a podcast that Caleb and Dalen and myself do. We release episodes every Friday, and our episode 4 of our podcast talks about this very topic. It's how do we create safe spaces amongst ourselves. So I'd say, first off, anyone feel free to go check out that episode, but we can definitely talk a little bit about that too here. I'll start just really quickly. I think one of the biggest things, and LaRon hit so many great points, if I share with someone, a good gauge on if they're safe is, do they listen, right? Are they trying to invalidate or argue the way I feel or the way I viewed a situation at every turn, right? That's one simple example, is just, do they take what I'm saying to them as my truth? Do they take it at face value? Do they trust it? And do they operate from assuming that what I'm expressing to them is real and valid?
Right. Yeah, because oftentimes a person can quickly invalidate your feelings based off of their own personal experience or what they feel they would do. So it's easy for me. It should be easy for you. And sometimes we can become dismissive, especially as men, when you throw in the machismo, the bravado and all of that. We encourage each other to just dismiss our feelings really quickly. And it creates a problem. It creates a big problem. One thing that Andrew and I talk about a lot, and so I'm going to call on you for this, Andrew. There's an issue, and I believe, I don't know if you coined the term or not, Drew. Let me know if I'm correct or not, but mental blight. I want to talk about that a little bit and how that affects our mental health. And so you have the floor. Can you explain what mental blight is?
So mental blight is an unrecognized form of mental pain that has been melding for centuries, that was born into us, meaning the pain that I feel today, it was not mine. It was my forefathers and my foremothers, and I accepted that pain because I was in their household and I saw their tears and I saw the pain that was around me, and that by association became my pain. Now that pain, as I grow older, I have no answers for. I don't understand it. I don't even know what it is. But I'm growing older and I'm growing more frustrated with it because I cannot resolve it. I cannot resolve something that's inside of me. I get more and more frustrated. I get more and more angry, and I get further and further away from reality, to the point where now my anger has its own personality. My anger not only has its own personality, but it's been going on for so long that I actually think this is now normal. And this is now my normal, and there is no way I can break this. So I might as well accept it and learn how to live with it, which means that anything that I'm dealing with is now basically hopeless. So now I'm just surviving. But yet, as I'm just surviving, I'm getting angrier. I'm getting angrier. More stuff is happening to me as I get older. And eventually I explode because I never knew that pain that was in me in the first place.
That's internal family systems right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that?
This idea of anger and emotion that is used or takes shape or takes its own form as a personality, as you mentioned, as a survival mechanism, is exactly how, through the lens of internal family systems, we do survive, right? Because somewhere along the line, we were told or we got feedback that said how we were wasn't going to work. And so we need to adopt or adapt this new character trait, this new way of being. In Andrew's example, being angry. Anger is the defense mechanism that then takes on its own personality, and it feels like it becomes who you are, but it's not. It's not who you are. It's this part of you that grows and grows and grows because that's who you think you have to be to survive.
Definitely makes sense. Melvin Brown, he says, good evening, everyone. Melvin, thanks for tuning in. We always appreciate your support. Thanks for being here. I did want to address another question in the comment section from Devin Elise. Devin is with Lifted KC, which is another mental health organization. Shout out to her. She just won an award last weekend, so congratulations, Devin. But she said, I could be wrong. She's talking about the safe space conversation. I could be wrong because I'm a woman, but I would think depending on what each person deems safe, that may look different per person or no. Caleb, I see you nodding your head really quickly. What's your response to that?
Absolutely. It could look different for everyone based on a myriad of things, how you were raised, what culture you're raised in, what was valued, what was devalued. But there are a few basic tenets that will always foster safety. Vulnerability and trust are two of those basic tenets. Can I trust that when I open up to you and I say I'm saying this in confidence, that it stays in confidence? Can I trust you to be there for me? Can I trust you to show up for me when I need you? So trust is always going to be something that is necessary. You cannot have a safe space if there's no trust, point blank, period. I don't care what value. I don't know. People say, oh, I value loyalty. I value this. If you do not have trust, you do not have a safe space, point blank, period. And then vulnerability. Are you able to go to those places where you don't typically let people into? And in order to get vulnerable with someone, what do you have to have? You have to have trust. Now, vulnerability is a two-way street, right? Vulnerability is saying that I, Caleb, have to have the sense of safety and trust and belonging that I'm going to let Jordan and Dalen into a part of my life that no one else has seen. And then I trust them to hold me in that in a way that will not be harmful to me. That is how you begin to create a safe space.
Let's see.
Can I quick, Andrew, if you don't mind?
Please.
I was thinking about when you creating a safe place is really having, and this is saying it in a different way, but it's having a safe ear and knowing that the person that you're talking to has a safe tongue. And that's another way of saying it. And I say it like that because I think it's very important that we talk about the safe place, but how do we define or how do we know how to put ourselves in a place to where it is safe with the person? Like, how do we do that? How do we know if this person we can trust? One thing that I do personally is, and I truly believe in health. I actually tell a few people about this as well, is we have to measure, we have to, I'm just going to say it like this, test people with a level of trust. Tell something that, you know, it's not that big of a deal, but it's a little big of a deal till they feel that it is. Tell them it, even if they tell it's not going to hurt you, but you'll see if you can trust them. Mm-hmm. A lot of men, we say we don't know who we can trust. We can't trust nobody because when we do put out trust, we give too much of it to the wrong person. And when that person hurts us, then we close back. So it's about, you want a safe place, you want to find a safe place, it's a safe ear. And we have to measure the level of trust by offering some of ourselves up. And we can't be so scared. And so we have to, that's where that vulnerability comes in, because we have to be willing to let up a little bit so that someone can come in, but just know how much you're willing to give to that person. And as we begin to build that relationship now, because it's about a relationship, once we're able to build that relationship, then we can have people that we can give our everything to. Andrew, can I be honest with you, man? And you know this. And this is for a few people. I open myself up to you. There's things that you'll know about me, but nobody does. But it's because I trust you. And this comes with, okay, what does he think about this? People want to know if you're going to judge them. I had someone told me that they set up a rate and they didn't go through with it. A client of mine said, listen, I'm telling you this for the purpose of understanding this trust thing. They set up a rate. They did not go through with it. A person who was involved, who said they was going to be involved with it, ended up telling on him because he said he didn't want to go through with it. The dude was crying to me, said, I messed up. I didn't go through with it, but I messed up. He told me that. Why? Because I was a safe place. I had a safe ear and I have a safe tongue. But he worked up to that. You hear me? He worked up to that.
I'll add to
That's
that
extremely
too.
important. Yes, please, go ahead.
I think in addition to, I love what you said about giving that out and testing kind of incrementally. I also think something that a lot of my clients will do, and I've had to be honest, I've done this myself. One, we'll also take past hurts or past situations where we didn't have safe spaces with people, and we'll overgeneralize, right? And we'll say, well, I couldn't be open with XYZ person from the past, so that means I can't go there with anybody ever again. And I think it's important to keep those situations and keep those events where we were hurt, keep them in their proper place, and recognize that even though, yes, it's going to be hard to kind of overcome that barrier moving forward, that if, Joe Schmo 2 years ago, I thought I could trust and I told him something in confidence and he told everybody, that doesn't mean that Caleb is going to do that to me. So you almost have to kind of reset your trust factor and your trust level and your trust measure with every new person that comes into your life, because what person A did has no connection necessarily to what person B did. I think for men, that's particularly tough. We say, I was hurt once, so I'll never let anyone close enough to hurt me ever again. And as a result, we're alone. We don't feel like we have people to talk to. Meanwhile, there could be 5 guys in our distant circle that would love to be there for us, but we're not even giving them a chance to be that safe space for us, because we're assuming, I can't go to him with that. He'll do me like the last person did.
Yeah. We start to develop these misconceptions. We preconceive how people are going to be based off of our past experiences. Happens in dating a lot. One person hurt me. Now I'll never open myself up completely again. And then you damage the relationship from the onset because you aren't being your authentic self. Andrew, you had a comment?
So I'm glad you said, and then we go into relationships. What about, gentlemen, can you speak to, and I know there's no elevator pitch, but I got 3 different scenarios. And if you got like some way that can help a listener, a woman wants to go through counseling, but her man says, hey, listen, I don't need no other man telling me, no other man gonna come up in my house and tell me what I need to do. Are you crazy? I got this. What do you say?
Can I take that? Oh, go ahead, Caleb.
No. You got that one. You get that one.
I love this one because my clients all the time, they'll come week after week, right? They'll have a situation and they'll come back and they'll say, I did what you told me to do. And They're really proud of themselves. And I think there's a common misconception in therapy. And I can only speak for myself and how I do therapy. I've never once told a client what to do. Not once. I ask questions. I get you to explore circumstances and situations. I get you to explore the possibility of the outcome. What would happen if you were to do this? And how does that outcome relate to what you would like to do? Or, hey, you told me once that this was your goal. How do you think this route would get you towards your goal? Do you think that's a viable option? Maybe we explore that route. But I've never once told a client what to do, and I think a lot of therapists would say the same, that we're not in the advice giving business. We're not making demands. We're not telling people what to do. We're asking them questions and leading them to their own conclusions based on what they actually already know internally, coming
Let me
from
be more specific.
that
Let me be a little bit more specific, because what I'm actually asking is, before they become your client, the woman is willing, but she does not know how to get the man there. That's what he's saying to her.
Mm.
He's saying, I don't need no other man to be all up in my business, to get my head. I got this.
Yeah.
So how can she even get him there?
I'll let y'all two take that one.
I mean, sometimes it's.
And here's the thing. We're not even asking for answers tonight, but understand that some of these are the questions on the table.
Yeah.
And the reason that I'm asking is that the next question, that next comment is, hey, what do you say to the guy that does come there and says, I'm good?
Yeah, I think, at least for the woman, kind of in a situation where she's trying to get her, boyfriend, father, whoever, whatever man in her life help. And he's saying, like, I got this, I can do whatever. Clearly, there's something else going on that maybe he doesn't have it all going on with. Or maybe he's complaining about some stuff. And it's like, maybe you say you got this, but then there's also these other things that are going on. And there's these things that you're complaining about and, kind of pointing out that incongruency of just being like, you're saying this, but you're also saying this. These things don't line up. So if you've got it, you've got it. And if you don't, maybe it's time to kind of reach out to somebody. And that's kind of what we do. It's like Jordan said, we're never going to tell someone what to do. I think one of the first things we learned in school was clients are allowed to keep their problems. We can talk about stuff all day long, and we can come up with, things to do, and we can point out how it's affecting them and all these things. And if they don't want to change, that is their decision. So if he, this man truly doesn't want to get help and truly doesn't want to do anything and thinks that he's got it, he's allowed to do that. That's his decision. But if he wants to make a change and wants to try and better himself, then that's the only way that it's going to happen.
Some people think
I'll go to you next, Lauren. One thing I want to throw in here, and I think this is really relevant to the portion of the conversation that we're in. Elevating Men was birthed through the death of my father. That's kind of what started all of this. My father passed away in October of 2020. Elevating Men was started in November of 2020. And it had to do with a lot of me processing my thoughts around his death, realizing that there were certain questions that I had that I would never be able to get answered. And what I found is that when I started to open up and share my own personal journey, my failures, my mishaps, my missteps, the times that I was in the shower crying that nobody knew about, the times where I couldn't get out of bed, when I started sharing those with other men, they started opening up to me. And so I think sometimes we have this approach of, you have the problem, so I'm going to ask the questions and you need to release. And in general, for most men, that causes us to really just kind of clam up and close down inside. So what I found to be effective when men do reach out to me, I know that they're reaching out for a reason. They know what I do. They know what I'm about. And so instead of me going into a barrage of questions, trying to draw things out of them when I already know that they have everything close to their chest and they're guarded, I start sharing my own personal experiences and some of my failures and some of my hopes that, dreams that haven't come true. I become vulnerable with them. And I think that's what a lot of men miss. Once you see that it's okay to be vulnerable because this person has actually done it, they've shown you the way, it's a little bit easier for you to open up. I notice I'll be talking for, 5-10 minutes, sharing my story, sharing my issues, and then something resonates. And a lot of times what I find is we're all dealing with the same problems, right? Because there's only a few components to our lives. We have our childhood, we have the people that we love. As we become men, we have our relationships, we possibly have children. There's these cylinders of life that we dwell in. And when it comes to the challenges in each of those cylinders, because we live in the same world and we're exposed to a lot of the same things, those problems intersect. And so I really feel that the openness with you as the person who's helping is a huge thing. Latrice Tucker, she said that's exactly why one of the reasons my ex didn't want to go to therapy when we were together. No stranger needs to know our business, right? Why is that person a stranger?
Can I
why
address
haven't
that?
we broken that? Yeah, why haven't we broken that barrier first? Laurent did have a comment, so I do want to go to him, and then you'll be next. Laurent, what did you have?
I wanted to say, on the last question, as far as to Andrew's question, how to get a man, as far as what to say to him to get us to go to therapy, because a lot of us do have that issue. Les Brown says this, and this really stuck with me. He said, ask for help, not because you're weak, but ask for help because you want to remain strong. That quote right there is and was a very powerful quote to me, because we don't ask for help because we're weak, because there's something wrong with us, because we are failures, because we're less than. No, we ask for help because we want to remain strong, because we want this relationship to work, because we know that our mind is not okay, that our thought patterns are not in alignment to where we need and want them to be. So when we ask for help, we're doing it for ourselves because we want to remain strong. We're not weak. It takes a strong man. It takes a strong individual that says that I'm not right and I need help. My mind is not okay. I'm about to break. I'm about to lose it. It takes a strong man to say, I need someone. I can't do this alone. I've been praying. I'm praying right now, being alone, I don't feel that it's working. See, God can do it, but God put people here to help you. That's why we got therapists on the panel. God has given them the desire, the heart, the passion, the gift to have these things to help you, to help us. So we have to ask for help, not because we're weak, but we have to ask for help because we want to remain strong.
Man, that boy Laurent got me fired up. Let's go.
Let's go. Caleb, you had a thought that you wanted to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, I'm buzzing right now. Laurent with the words. Okay. I'm about to go like, comment, and subscribe.
That's why
Make
we
sure
call
you do
him
all
Laurent
that.
the Motivator. That's what. So let me throw this in there. Follow him on Laurent the Motivator on Facebook.
Yeah, do all that.
All
like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big things that I've uncovered is I'm an immigrant. I was born in Nigeria, moved to Kansas in 2002, and I've been in Kansas ever since. So I'm an immigrant, but in the common world, I'm just seeing in America, I'm just a regular black man. I think one of the things that we face is that the value we place on therapy isn't the value we place on other things, right? The first time you go to the doctor, you tell him all your business. Why? Because, he's still a stranger, but you want the help. But do you value the doctor the same you value your therapist? Because they actually do the same things. They look at what's going on and they offer potential solutions. But it's up to you to actually implement the solutions into what's actually going on. So for any man that's saying, what's going on? Why would I go tell some stranger our business? Nobody needs to be in our business. You have to look at that stranger as a professional. You are going to a professional to diagnose a potential problem. And as Jordan says, we are not in the advice giving business. We can diagnose and tell you, this is what I think is going on, and you can take it or you can leave it. But the value we place on our emotional and mental health, I think, is where we have to start, particularly as people of color, particularly as men, right? We need to increase the value we place on our mental health. If you get a cold, you get a cough, you might lay down for a couple of days, drink some Robitussin, chicken noodle soup, boop-de-boop, lay down, get up the next day, keep going. But if by day 4, 5, 6, you're still not better, you might think about calling the doctor. If it's 2 weeks and it's starting to affect your money, you can't watch the game, you can't do anything, then you go see the doctor. Think about what's going on in your head the exact same way. If that mental blight that exists is continuing to affect the way you live your life, why wouldn't you want to go talk to somebody about that, right? If you value the marriage and relationship that you're in, why wouldn't you want to go talk to a stranger about that? That's always one of the questions I like to ask. Because well, what am I coming here for if you're not going to give me advice? Well, why wouldn't you come here? As Dalen said earlier, what you're doing ain't working, so you might as well try something new.
Good question. Andrew.
So LeRon was saying some good stuff there, and then Caleb picked up on something and used the word value. Imagine if I am saying, this ain't working, man. I'm about to bust. I'm going crazy. Stuff is killing me, dude. Imagine if I'm saying that to my immediate circle every single time we're together. I am actually saying that I have a problem, but I'm not saying it to the right people or to the people that can actually help me put it in some type of order, such as the gentlemen that are here. But I am saying that. Imagine if I keep saying that, and the people that I see as valuable, because my value system is now about, man, if I can just pay off my bills, pay off this debt, if I can just get some money, if I can just win this lottery, if I can just hit the number, if I can just, then I can pay off my problems, because some of us think that value is outside of us. Some of us don't think that this value is not here, but it's here, and that's going to repair here. So I go to a person who is balling, who appears to have money, and say, hey man, can you help me with my problem? All I need is a loan or so forth and so on, but that's not the problem. That only puts a Band-Aid on it until I spend the money and never solve the problem. So now I'm back at square one. Angrier.
To the topic of money, Tom Brady, Jeff Bezos, and
Bill Gates.
Yeah, Bill Gates are, by all expenses, they have nothing to worry about when it comes to money. These men have accomplished things that will last on for the rest of history. 7 Super Bowl rings, Amazon, Microsoft, the internet. Yet every single one of them have gone through a divorce. So if you're trying to pay off your problems, well, I think, and especially in America and the capitalist system that we exist in today, I think that is no small task. I think the value we place on money is something that is grossly oppressed upon us from literally a young age. Start a lemonade stand, go mow some lawns, do this, do that, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. The reality is some people ain't even got boots. Some people ain't got no straps. Some people just got socks. Some people have no socks. Does that mean you can't put yourself together and get to work? No. But if you value just paying off your problems, you are, again, putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. You are attempting to address the symptoms, not the root cause of this problem. And at the end of the day, let's say you do hit the numbers. You do pay off the bills. What did Biggie say? More money, more problems. So then you arrive at a new station. You've paid off your old problems, but now you got new problems. So how then do you address those problems? What is it that you value? What is it that you're placing your time on, your effort on? What is it the thing that's going to make you happy? If it's not this, it's that. And if it's not that, it's this. So it all comes back to the question of, what is it that you actually want? And to the people, I really love how you said that. Maybe I'm actually talking to the people around my immediate circle. Maybe they just aren't hearing it. Because I think the response that most people will say, hey man, just tighten up, go hustle, be about your grind, get some money, tighten up, be a man. we actually created a men's wellness group called Man Up to Your Emotions. Because far too often when men do begin to express, it's tough right now, it's tight, I really don't have anywhere else to go, and I'm going to my close friends, the response all too often is, hey man up. What does that actually mean? And so we came up with the theory of manning up to your emotions, turning internally, looking at what's going on internally, fostering healing within, so then you can actually foster healing without. Because until you've healed and until you're taking care of yourself, you are not the best version of yourself, and you cannot take care of others to the best of your ability.
And if I could chime in there real quick, this is why this stuff is so important. Men supporting other men, because men aren't expressing their emotions because largely of how society gives us feedback about when we do it. We were talking about Kanye, before we went online. He got in a public space and cried. And what did the world do? They clowned him. Or Tyrese gets on the internet and cries about his child support issues and not being able to see his daughter. What did the world do? They clowned him. They laughed at him. Michael Jordan cries. He becomes a meme, right? Michael Jordan crying face everywhere. If men don't do it for each other, it's not going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we feel so strongly about the work that we're doing and the groups and the other things that we're trying to do, as well as partnering with other groups, men, organizations who are doing the same thing. Because if we don't do it for each other, because the world's that's not gonna stop until we as a collective say that's not cool. When we see the next time a celebrity or whoever gets on the internet or gets on the news and is crying, maybe we will think twice about jumping on Facebook and posting the meme and laughing at them, because we'll remember, damn, I cried to that woman once, or when I was a kid and I cried, everyone in the neighborhood teased me. We have to do it for each other first to help show everyone else what it needs to look like and how we can foster emotional expression, every emotion.
Mm-hmm. So what is the what's the fine line between being able to express your emotions, a negative experience happening, and you being able to voice that unapologetically, versus you just turned into a crybaby, right? Because those two do exist, I believe, or am I wrong? Like, is there a point where it's like, okay, at this point, is there a point where you man up? Is there a point? What would you say to that?
So can I jump in there real quick? Oh, no, go ahead, Dalen. Go ahead, Dalen.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I would say kind of the difference between those two, because I think there is a point of when it's kind of, okay, enough of, feeling your feelings about this is enough. And it kind of comes to that point when you're continuously voicing your discomfort for something over and over and over again, and you're not doing anything different about it. You're not trying to make the situation better. You're just complaining. You see this with jobs all the time. People show up to a job that they hate, and they show up and they complain about the job that they hate and how terrible it is and how bad the boss is and how bad the job is. They're not doing anything about it. They're not making a change. They're not changing their job. They're not trying to find a better situation in life. They're not trying to make the job better. They're just complaining. They talk about how angry they are or how sad they are, with no action, with no real work. And so it's just kind of those words. And so that's when it kind of falls on deaf ears. It's just like, we're tired of hearing the same broken record over and over and over again. And in therapy, we'll call that out and be like, okay, we've talked about how angry you are about this situation. Let's talk about getting you out of this anger, because you've fully expressed this many times. Now it's time to move on.
Is there a common thread that you guys find, and any of you can take it, but is there a common thread that you find amongst those people who are just stuck and they just can't get past this one thing? Are there any common threads that you all see in your practice?
I think from what I've seen, because I want to do a lot of grief work, this is something I've worked through in my life, and I think there's definitely a longer period where people feel stuck, but that is something that is so deep and so world changing. The loss of someone, the loss of anything. So I definitely see it's like a longer period of time. People think that they're stuck, but it's just a longer process. And sometimes it's down and then up and then way down. And so I see people stuck in grief for longer, but they do eventually get out of it as long as they continue to do the work and continue to show up.
I think stuckness sometimes mirrors fear, right? So we stay stuck in something because we're afraid to move through it or move away from it or whatever the case might be, right? And something that I try to work with my clients on, there's a theme in the mental health space. There's a concept called the cognitive triangle. So if you picture a triangle, right, the points of our psyche are made up of 3 points. There's what we feel, there's what we think, and there's what we do, right? Cognition, emotions, actions. And I think stuckness also sometimes has to do with when we feel something and assume that because we feel that now something needs to be done. And when those actions don't take away the feeling, people will think they're stuck. It's like, well, I was sad. I went to the buffet and ate my feelings, but I'm still sad. And I tried to go on a run, but I'm still sad. And I tried to hang with my friends, but I'm still sad, right? Those are all distractions. Those are all behaviors that that person's probably using just to temporarily take their mind off the fact that they are sad. So they'll feel stuck. When in reality, what they're doing is avoiding the feeling. There's something we talk about in our men's group where feelings are signals. They are signals that are trying to tell you or alert you to a need, right? I'll give you just a snippet because you gotta come to the group to get the full thing. But take sadness, for example, because Dalen mentioned grief. Sadness is an emotion, which is a signal that's telling you that something needs to be healed. So your body is going to respond to that signal by doing what? Slowing down, lower energy. It's trying to tell you, stop running, stop moving around, stop doing all the stuff that you're trying to do to get away from me, and slow down and look at the thing that needs healing. When people aren't doing that, they will feel stuck because they're actually not addressing what the emotion is trying to tell them that they need. If that makes sense.
Love it. Love it. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. LeBron or Andrew, I saw one of you raise your hand. I'm sorry. Which one was it?
Go ahead, LeBron.
Are you sure, Andrew? Because I thought you raised it a little before me. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, sir. I was thinking about there is a fine line between a complainer and some things just taking time because grief takes time and no one can tell you when you should stop grieving. I understand. It takes the griever to say, you know what? I'm ready to stop grieving now. That's what it takes. It takes the griever. Our job as the listener, and I don't want to go too far back, but it's to listen, especially when we're being that ear. So it may take some time. Now, the difference between, so we have to understand the difference. The way that you can tell the difference between a griever and someone who's just being negative and a complainer, it's like Albert Einstein said, a negative person has an excuse for every solution. You catch that? And so when people don't really want a solution, they just want to complain. Every solution that you offer or every question that you ask, they already got a reason why it's not going to work for them. That's a complainer. And complainers don't need help. Complainers don't need help. They need somebody to talk to. And they ain't talking to me. So I'm going to say this, and I want to leave with this as well. Les Brown says it like this. When we argue against our limitations, we get to keep them. And some of us just want to argue against what we can't do. I was talking to a client today, and I'm done. I was talking to a client today, and she's looking to be very successful and build her business. So she was wanting me to help her to get through. She said she has money issues. She said she don't really have time. And she said she has mental illness where she has epilepsy. And I said, she's like, so that's the reason why I'm dealing with this mental illness, and I'm trying to do this for my family. I'm 44. I don't have that much life to live. All this, she was telling me all these things. And she said, LaRon, I have epilepsy. She harped on that. And I came back to the question, and I said to her, I said, I understand you have epilepsy. I understand that it's a very true thing that you are dealing with. But my question to you is this. Do you believe that even with this, you still can be successful? And she said to me, yes, I do believe it. I do believe it. And so I said, that excuse should never come out of your mouth again. A lot of times it's our own limiting beliefs and how we feel about ourselves. And we have to understand that. We have to identify that so that we can get out of that space. And so sometimes we need a coach or a therapist to help us. That's why we got to get help. Ask for help. I'll leave you with it again. Not because we're weak, but because we really want to remain strong. And so with that being the case, identify what it is and go get help.
Love it, love it, love it. Andrew, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah. So remember the mental blight thing, and we were talking about a person who's the fine line between complaining. I'm born, and now I'm of the age of maybe 1 or 2 years old, and I'm starting to get my hand smacked. Based on, I think Caleb was talking about how we scare with no, don't do that, and yes, do that. 3 years old, I'm starting to cry because I fall down, and the male in my life, whether it be a father figure or a father or uncle, hits me saying, hey, no. I give you something to cry about. That ain't nothing to cry about. So now I'm 6 years old, and I'm at school, and I'm not as fast as the kids. I get pushed down, and I cry, and now they start laughing at me. So crying is starting to become a bad thing. I get up into middle school, and something happens, and I'm in the men's locker room, and all of a sudden, I'm the laughing stock of the men's locker room, and I'm feeling bad, but I remember I can't cry because they told me, hey, don't cry. I'm getting older, and my first girlfriend, we didn't work out. I didn't know what to do, and hey, she found a quarterback of the football team. So it's only going in this direction right now. And remember, mental blight says that I also didn't get my 40 acres of the mule. Mental blight says I also have to renew this voting act every time, and mental blight says, and I also can't drive the streets at night or walk the streets at night or just think about the streets at night because I might get shot. Mental blight says that somebody else's pain is also my pain, and I've never talked about it. So when I finally start to find somebody that I can talk to, maybe it now sounds like complaining because there's so much in here. There's so much in here that needs to come out before I can even get to me. Before I can even get to me. But if you're trying to rush me through that process because I only got 5 sessions, yeah, that's not going to work. Because see, what you fail to realize, I'm now, this generation is now, according to Maslow's hierarchy, somebody mentioned it earlier, I am now born into the 4th rung, which is I'm looking for the 3rd rung. I'm looking for acceptance and stuff like that. And then because I'm looking for acceptance, I have to achieve something so I can maintain this false acceptance that I've already been given. And now I move right into self-actualization so that people will actually think that I am this achievement so I can maintain this acceptance. But I have no foundation. I have no foundation whatsoever because I was already born on the 3rd rung. I don't know about food, water, and air. And I also don't know about my own safety and security because I'm forever at risk. And I don't know how to even explain it. Can you help me with that?
I think what you're describing is exactly why therapy and life coaching is so important, right? Because what you're describing and that feeling is so overwhelming. I felt overwhelmed hearing you, like picturing that person you were describing and envisioning all the hurt that they were experiencing, right? It's heavy stuff. And left to a person's own devices, it's really hard to sift through all of that and bring order to it in your mind. We're trained to do that. You know, we go to school to hear that and then conceptualize it and give you tools and frameworks and ways of thinking to make it make sense in your own head so that then that person can take that information, that new insight, and go, oh, man, that's why I do XYZ. And then those new insights bring new understanding and open the doors for change. So I think if, to maybe a listener or anyone who may be feeling that weight of that mental blight and the layer upon layers of hurt, this is the space to unpack that stuff. Now, it has to be done in a way, back to Caleb's point earlier, where the provider has the space and the breadth to be able to stick it out with a person for 20, 30. I got clients right now, I've seen 60 sessions. We've been working together for 2+ years. And sometimes that's what it takes. You may go 3, 4, 5 months of just unpacking all that stuff before a light bulb of new insight clicks. That's what therapy is. And that's what we're here to do. And that's the space that we need to create and hope that more people enter into that space with us.
Love it. Love it. Listen, we're a tad bit over time. I'm really excited about the next session. So next week, we definitely want you all to tune back in. We're going to be tackling the midlife crisis. This is one thing that hits men pretty hard. I believe there's a lot of different reasons for it. Happy to have a few educated therapists on the panel who can give us a little more insight. I've got a few theories. I know Andrew and Laurent do as well, and so we'll be tackling that on next week. But before we go, I want each of you to take just a second, promote yourself. Let them know where they can find you, websites, any special offers, anything that you have going on. Dalen, I'll start with you.
Yeah. So I'm actually still finishing my degree. I will finish in May, but I am practicing at a wonderful site in Kansas City. It's Casey Wilco. So we have a wonderful intern site where you can see my face, read my bio, and all the things like that. I'm currently still taking clients, so if anyone out there is hearing this and likes what I said and wants to give it a try, I'm currently open. And then you can also find us at our podcast, The Men's Wellness Collective. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple, it's on YouTube. So, give us a listen, and we take a good deep dive into kind of all these conversations. And I'm really proud of all of it. So, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Jordan.
Yeah. For me right now, I'm actually not currently in the Kansas City area, so I'm unable to accept clients in Kansas City. I'm currently living in Lexington, Kentucky for the next year. So if you're in that area, you can reach out to me. Probably my email is the best way, to get in touch with me client-wise. It is jlewis, Lewis, wellness@gmail.com. Other than that, the Men's Wellness Collective and our podcast is my biggest passion project right now. So as Dalen said, search Men's Wellness Collective. We're on YouTube, and our episodes release every single Friday on audio and then Sundays on video. So check us out there.
Perfect. Caleb.
Yeah, as Dylan said, I'm working at the same private practice where Dylan is interning. I am accepting new clients. You can get a hold of me at my website, CalebAdegoke.com. That's CalebAdegoke.com. As you've heard many, many times, I'll say it one last time, the Men's Wellness Collective is my biggest passion project as well right now. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. You can also get a hold of us at contact@menswellnesscollective.com. Shoot us an email. We would love to hear from you. And other than that, I just want you to do one thing. for the rest of the week. Until you tune back to the show next week, just take 1 second every day and just do something for yourself.
Love it. Love it. LaRon, Mr. Barnes, man, you were so insightful today. Appreciate all of your comments. Do you have anything going on that the community needs to know about?
Absolutely. And I would just say, as usual, definitely follow me on LaRon the Motivator, where you can get your daily inspiration and motivation, because we all need a place where we can feel free and have some positivity going on. You also can follow me on the Balanced Entrepreneurs, for coaches, entrepreneurs who are stuck, who need to get past those limiting beliefs that are keeping you from making money and having a successful business. Definitely follow me on there as well. And that's all I got for you today. Oh, yeah. One last thing. If you are challenged with overcoming limiting beliefs and you are having challenges, need someone to talk to overcome what is holding you back, reach out to me, especially if you are an entrepreneur. I specialize in that field.
Love it. Love it. Andrew, final words, thoughts, and could you share with them the restoration?
So the restoration is designed for us to restore. Restin2050.org is the website, and the purpose is for us to truly restore. We are the restoration, collectively, individually, and collectively. And one of the things that Caleb mentioned when we started out was the broken system, about what kind of therapy is accepted currently by insurance, and that usually drives sometimes the type of work that can be done and the amount of work that can be done. The restoration is trying to build a system, is trying to build a tomorrow where these limitations and these band-aids no longer apply, but the fix is now in. And I've told some of you, therapists specifically, that your field of study is critical to this, because unlocking the mind and creating the understanding the why we are the way we are for tomorrow is critical. Because right now, the way the restoration sees this is everything that we talk about is reaction, meaning what happened, what am I healing from? We have no tomorrow to look for right now, because we're still mired in our pain field yesterday that we're trying to fix yesterday, which is why we cannot get out of our yesterday to build our tomorrow. The restoration is about building that tomorrow, and these therapists are critical in that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And my name is A.L. Johnson with Elevating Men, also the owner of A.L. Johnson Life Insurance Agency. I do have a couple quick announcements before we close the show. We have a couple shows this week that are extremely important, so I want you to stay tuned into my page. Tomorrow evening, I'm going to be doing an interview with Mr. Kareem Jackson, Mr. Ajamu Webster, and Gwendolyn Washington, where we're going to be talking about the new credit union, We Development Credit Union, that's going to be opening up in Kansas City. Their grand opening is this weekend. It's going to be huge for our community, and so I want you guys to tune in. That's going to be tomorrow at 7 p.m. We're going to be talking about how that will affect the community, what all they have going on there, so I definitely don't want you to miss that. Also, tune in on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Myself, Mr. Carlos Nelson of Cascade Media Group, as well as Daryl Forte, will be having a conversation on the state of Kansas City. We're going to be talking about some pretty deep topics, school closings, the elections, and several other very important topics to our community. So I don't want you to miss out on that either. Stay tuned to my page. If you look at the featured section, it's going to have the upcoming events. I want you to register and make sure that you do not miss out on this important conversation. And just as important, next Monday, we'll be back with this panel of great men who spoke with us tonight. We're going to be talking about the midlife crisis. This is huge. It's huge. It's huge. It affects a lot of men in several different ways. And so if you have any men in your life that are anywhere near that age, even before that age, make sure that they tune in. I believe that they will walk away with something very, very valuable. As always, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your support. Please share this with your network, because the conversation should never stop here. You want to have these conversations in your home and with the people that you love. Again, if you have any needs, contact any one of these gentlemen. They'll be happy to help you. Again, we thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
And we're clear. Clear?
There we go.